Peace, 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 family. Sam PK Collins here with Mama Ayo Handy Kendi. I am it's not very usual that we conduct an All Eyes on DC interview uh, on a Tuesday afternoon. We usually do it Friday evenings. Had it not been for COVID, we would have been at Sankofa. But I think now more than ever, the people they need to hear what it is that we hear, and they need to understand, the power of the services that you provide and why the guidance that you continue to provide after 30 years or so is so very important. For those of y'all, and if you're not aware already, come August 1st, Mama Ayo has something very, very crucial to share with the world via Zoom. She is going to educate us more about how breathing can help us tie our schisms as it relates to gender and race and just other groups, and how we can better heal ourselves from race-based trauma. So let's welcome Mama Ayo to the All Eyes on DC show, the Zoom edition, y'all. All right, Mama Ayo, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Brother Sam, do people tend to call you Sam PK, or do they call you Brother Sam?
Yes, ma'am.
They
Yes,
call you
ma'am.
Brother Sam. So I want to thank you, Brother Sam, and I want to give praise and honor and give thanks to the Almighty first and foremost, just for having a chance to breathe, just for having breath in my body. And I want to thank you because I know you have brought to our DC community, but because DC is the central nucleus for a world community, I'm
Exactly.
sure you have really, really helped a lot of people by sharing really valuable information. So I appreciate you as a person, a communicator, and a community supporter. I'm so grateful to be on the show because I know it touches a lot of lives, and we are in the process of offering a what we call a breath shop, quote unquote breath shop, a workshop that uses breathing as the foundational modality to help us to move and transform. Ayo Handy Kendi is talking about breathing all the time. That has become my real passion as a community organizer, counselor, diversity trainer, someone who's always been trying to help people do better than when they came into the world, mainly because I'm always trying to help myself do better. And I've been wanting to find methods to share that help me, that changed my life. And I have been very blessed, successful in being able to offer and share with millions of people the concept of what's called the power of the breath. Now, of course, we all breathe, yet there is an efficient way of breathing, and it's a very inefficient way of breathing. So, because we all breathe and we take breathing for granted, it was years ago when I saw myself holding my breath a lot that I began to question, why did I hold my breath so much? And just that asking that question has led me to 50 or more years of discovering that my holding my breath had a whole lot to do with my not taking care of myself. It was affecting my health. It was affecting my mental, spiritual, emotional health. It was an indication of a deeper reality of how I felt about myself. And once I realized and learned that what this holding breath pattern really meant, not only for me, I began to research and see that the breath of life, the allowance of us, gives us more health and life and well-being and all of the blessings of something that is really the key, the foundation to life. It's not just we're doing this, it is the key that without breathing, there is no life. And once I realized how important that this simple act of holding my breath was literally the key to my entire well-being, it made me really turn around. It shifted my whole perspective about health, life, well-being, everything. And I began to study this essence. I began to realize this was an ancient study. This was an ancient study that had been passed down from what we consider the days of, we call the divine, where our ancient Egyptian folks in those tombs and those pyramids, we were able to go back and see that they were documenting the study of the breath in the hieroglyphics, images of people showing themselves doing downward facing dog, and the images that you see where they have the sphinx or the image of the two hands, the cobra, and the coiling of the body. These were actually symbolic, these were symbols of what the ancients were sharing as a whole study of health. And this study of health, healing, spiritual growth, and development became the essence of what today we take so for granted as yoga. But this study of yoga was about yoking us back to consciousness and 5 specific pillars. The pillars related to breathing, they related to movement, they related to divine eating, they related to having a spiritual relationship to something that was higher than oneself, and they related to ritual. And once these African basic principles are going within to be the highest of conscious development, as these were shared, these principles were shared some 10,000 years later to what we consider the people of India, who then turned this system into conscious raising systems related to meditation, metta, going within the Sanskrit word, and also this concept yoking back to consciousness. Well, today, when we do our modern day studies in our yoga studios, we seldom talk about the other principles other than the asanas, the movements, those earlier movements of the God. But the consciousness from just simply having mastery over the breath, the average yoga professional may get a sense of breathe, get into the movement, breathe, shift. Oh, you have to breathe so that you can relax. But my study started 50 years ago now, has led me to understand that breath in and of itself will move us in and out of consciousness. If we don't move, we will move the breath, and that will move consciousness. And for me, this study opened up my portals where I had shut my body down. My consciousness, I thought that was evolved, was really very repressed. It was repressed under years and years and years of painful holding on to my breath, which helped me to hold on to pain and trauma, tension and stress. And as I began to unravel all of that, unpack what the symbology of our holding our breath did for me, I began to assess that millions and trillions of people are dealing with ill health because of the same factor, the same stresses, traumas, pain, issues that made me close off, close in, tighten up my breath so that in holding the breath, it managed the pain that I could not intellectually manage. Physically, spiritually, holding my breath helped me manage the emotional pain, which when we have emotional pain, we are dealing with emotional pain that can easily turn into physical pain. that study did lead me into understand that there are 60 or more stress-related, emotionally, consciously construct, constructs from which this emotional pain can turn into physical pain. So all these concepts of cancer, uh, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, uh, uh, schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, uh, uh, all of those so-called psychological issues. I have been able to now look at some of the emotional beginnings, that they're not necessarily genetically coded, passed on, passed down through our genes. They are all they are often, more often than not, created from our environment, not only food we eat, the emotional stresses that we don't release and don't. But again, a number one symptom that runs through all of these issues is simply holding on to pain and trauma that never ever gets released. And though therefore we're holding on to the very things that will continue to help us struggle, that then will turn into diseases. Then we talk about high blood pressure. We talk about diabetes. We talk about asthma. We talk about all of the so-called issues that so-called are the underlying health issues that Black folks disproportionately suffer from, which is the so-called reason in COVID that so many more Black folks are dying. The issue again being that a lot of those same physical ailments start from the same simple concept. Again, holding breath, not creating oxygen movement, not eating oxygenated foods, all related to breath, oxygen, circulation, all related to the key factor of life is the oxygen we bring in, circulated around. It changes into carbon dioxide, the gas that is the imbalance. That's the toxic waste.
Mama Ayo.
The cycle goes on 20,000 times a day.
I appreciate that, and thank you once again for your work, for all that you've done, and like all your research.
You're welcome, and we give time.
And I apologize for cutting you off. I just had a question that kept.
That's all right.
Just kept popping. This question that I had, I guess it related to when you said earlier we're breathing incorrectly. So just us being in this system, in this environment, how do we breathe correctly? What is it? What is it that we should do to breathe to our optimum level, to a level that'll get us right?
Yes. An optimum breath starts in a place that we consider a deep breath creates the most oxygenated possibility. And we talk about a deep breath, yet we demonstrate just the opposite. We demonstrate what's called a real shallow breath. So because we're looking at something we do in 20,000 times a day, this makes real impact if it's not effective. So yes, everyone's breathing 20,000 times or more a day, 6 to times a minute at optimum. But on average, most people are breathing 15 to 18 times a minute. Okay, but the optimum would be 6, which means that each breath is deep, full intake, and the release or the exhale breath is longer to let go of more toxic waste. So to teach people how to breathe efficiently, I ask people to sit up. I tell people to put one hand on their chest, Take the thumb of the opposite hand, connect it right on your belly button, placing it flat, taking the other four fingers, resting them just below the belly button, flat on your body. And just for a minute, I want you to focus attention on just your breathing. I want you to feel the breath going in and out of your body, in and out, in and out. Notice the breath of life, the very thing that most of us pay no attention to until most of the time we can't breathe. And I'm just speaking now so I can give you a few minutes of allowing yourself to breathe. I want you to allow the breath to come in and out, in and out, in and out. I don't want you to pay any attention to anything other than the breath. You may hear the sound of my voice, but your thoughts will immediately start thinking of, oh, how long is she going to do this? Or, gee, what is this about? Or, oh, I can feel the heat. Or I can feel certain things happening in my body. I want you to notice which hand is moving up and down with each breath that you take. Yes, if you close your eyes, you can really focus. You can just allow yourself to feel the breath. Notice if the breath is going into the hand on the chest or if it's the hand on your belly. If you notice your hand on your chest is rising up and down, then you're one of the 9 out of 10 who is breathing inefficiently. Instead, notice if the hand on your belly, we call it breathing into the hand on the belly. If your hand is moving with each breath in and out, you are an efficient belly breather. Now you may notice that your hand is going up and down on your chest and your belly. That is also considered inefficient breathing, what's called paradoxal breathing from the belly and the middle part of our chest, or the middle lung, because the lung is divided into 3 sections. Our affirmation is to feel the breath breathing more from the lower portion where the hand is on the belly. With each breath, inhale, you should feel your belly coming out. Exhale, your belly should go in. Inhale, your belly comes out. Exhale, your belly goes in. Inhale, your belly goes out. Make your belly soft. Exhale, your belly goes in. This simple in and out, happening 20,000 times a day. If there's a possibility that even half of those deeper breaths, 10,000 of those breaths could be deep in the body as opposed to high up in our chest, straining the chest muscles, minimizing oxygen intake, and minimizing the circulation of a full breath of oxygen. Imagine that if we optimize every breath, that oxygen meal would enable lungs to expand, creating a great rich flow of oxygen into our blood that then would enrich every single cell of every single organ of our body. So slowly begin to come out. Now I noticed, Sam, as soon as you start doing that, your eyes start getting low. You look like you was getting very relaxed. Did you get very relaxed?
Very relaxed, very much so. Very much
and
so.
You just almost just got relaxed. I know.
Yeah, it's it.
Yeah, because we are tensing out our bodies 20,000.
It was good. It took some effort reversing my breathing.
Where there's no place in our human anatomy for this part of our body to expand. Our lungs are small at the upper chest and they are not as expansive as they are in the lower portion of our chest. So the ability for that expanded lung to almost like house, similar to a processing plant that fills up with all of this liquid, or oxygen, right? And then slowly begins to release it, filling the body up and then slowly releasing it. This goes on in the cycle. And we have totally been given all the wrong signals on the blessing of taking the time to just simply learn something so simple. And so I find great pleasure in offering this because the shift, I see it immediately as I saw in you over a description over internet. Okay, so that shows you how easily it can be done. But we have been very
Yeah.
blessed in having learned this one simple life-changing concept. We've been able to share this with millions of people, and there are millions of people around the world who have said, wow, just simply changing the way I breathe, that will actually begin to start a whole domino effect of shifts and changes in your entire life.
So once again, thank you for that demonstration. I promise you, I'm gonna work on doing that more consistently.
Yes,
I,
please.
I definitely felt a difference. Um, let's talk about yoga real quick. Uh, with yoga, you mentioned that we only focus on the asanas. So asanas meaning movement. And the way you described breathing, you described it in a way, if I recall correctly, that's like a way of life. That's like a liberty. It's very holistic. It's like the center of how we can fulfill everything. So would you mind just talking more about breathing's place in yoga?
Yes, yes. The
I know a lot of young people are embracing yoga.
embracing yoga. I go to my applied breathology book, which is my workbook. It speaks to the mastering of the breath, and there is a visual in the book. You can't really see it well, so I'll just describe it. It's a visual of what is called the Smatawi. Queen of Four speaks to the Smatawi because she named her healing space up in Brooklyn Smatawi. Smatawi was the Egyptian name that related to how the lungs was the center of the focus. That the lung that goes from here at the throat all the way to our tail bone, being the centered column, how critical its importance was as the source of life. There was the discussions in this yoga practice and by our ancients that if you wanted to have sustained life, you would have a focus on the lung health, that the lung health was the balancer, that the lung health was the purveyor of the source of energy, which later became known as words like chi and prana, source energy. The original source energy concept basically related to the focus of the kundalini, which was the actual essence of energy that would travel up through the spine and that would stop at the brain stem, and the brain stem is at the very tip. And at the brainstem very tip is where our breathing begins and ends. So the ancients understood that if we were to bring us back into focus, If we wanted the way of having awareness of full consciousness, we would need to start where in the physical body consciousness begins. And they recognize that consciousness began in the health of the lungs, in the very consciousness of the first thing we do when we come into the world, we would take a breath, which comes from the same brain stem connected to the spinal column. And the last thing we do, we take our last breath connected again to the same brain stem called the reptilian mind, which is from the brain perspective, it is the, oh shoot, I had it the other day. It is the actual part that makes the decisions about struggling and fear and survival. It will be the last part of us that will keep us in this world breathing. It will be the part that we'll hold on to help make certain that we don't have so much pain and trauma. So when we are tense and we're stressed, the ancients realized that it affected our breathing. We would either hold our breath or we would allow breath to move forward. Right. The brain stem they saw was the regulator, and this regulator would lead us to our best ability to manage, or it would cause us to do the running to survive. So fight or flight is all managed in this same part of this brain stem.
Wow.
How I got into the awareness of breathing and yoga had to do with seeing the life and death struggle of my son, who was on a breathing machine. And I was able to see this literally. Take him off the machine, he will either breathe on his own, and he didn't. We will put him back on the machine, we can breathe him forever. But he would not have had real life. He would have had artificially created life, which brought us all the way again back to the ancients. The ancients realized that the importance of this lung health meant the difference between optimally having good health and consciousness connected on all levels, spiritually, mentally, physically, or we would have limited, shallow, restricted health if we did not maximize the consciousness in our breathing. And that began the sharing of this information to primarily, it was the more richer, well-established Egyptian folks who developed this system, the early beginning of what we now call yoga, that was then passed on and passed on and passed on, that then began to leave Africa, that traveled around the world. And that system, if we think of consciousness around every conscious modality, the breath is there at the foundation. Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, every martial arts, Qigong, the movements, okay? Everything that relates to healing arts with movement. You're looking at all of even acting, having the ability to be a better actor. They learn breath techniques, okay? Because every time you shift your breathing, you can make yourself angry by the way that you breathe. You can make yourself cry by the way you shift your breathing, okay? Every time you move, athletes, they're running, they manage their breathing. The person who, before they even throws the javelin, they have to maximize their breathing. If you want consciousness, you look at every single scholar who has talked about the level of higher consciousness, you will somehow hear them throw in the perspective of breath. And so for breathing, as breath helped me to evolve, as breath helped me to come back to consciousness from holding my breath, fearing and, intention and stress and trauma, knowing that something was wrong with me, because here I was studying breathing, but yet I was still doing some things that was not as conscious. I knew something was wrong. And as I began to really delve into what was the thing that was wrong within me, what was wrong within me is that for years, I had actually held my breath because I was being sexually traumatized as a child from age 8 to about age 14. That started my whole consciousness to shut down the pain, yet energy is still held in the cells. And that pain energy was passed on year after year after year. For 30 or more years, I held pain within my being. I'm blessed that it didn't turn into a lot of unfortunate diseases, but it did create an imbalance of addiction within, my working, breathing, physical presence. I wasn't a whole healthy being. As I began to really breathe through what the energy that had stuck within my pain that I had not released, as I breathed through it, I screamed, I kicked, I cried, I released all of the pain, toxic energy. I was able to not only forgive my father, the perpetrator of that pain, I was able to forgive other perpetrators of other pain. I was able to forgive myself for things I had done to myself. But in this month of this mental health month, I began to really understand that hurt people, and that we as a people have been in tremendous pain, and that all this energy stuck within us, that we play out on ourselves, that we play out on other people, is all part of the same issue that the ancients had dealt with. We've been holding our breath for over 400 years, and in our own personal homes and community. Racism is making us hold our breath and is creating imbalances in our people. It is creating people who are hurt, and those hurt people are hurting other people. And we go through this revolving door of pain, hurt, tension, holding breath, physically not creating the healthier body, mentally not creating healthy bodies, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And simply by allowing ourselves to breathe better, we can begin to change all of that around. And I have been so blessed, not only as my personal example, but I have truckloads of examples of watching people change the way they breathe, dumping out that old stuff, becoming way more conscious and moving forward in joy. And so now we're taking that concept to racism, to teach it in a training program, in a step program similar to a 12-step program, just like AA, NA, something that enables us to share amongst ourselves, work with each other, share the breath of life, as well as share the emotional shifts that come from this training, and hopefully to offer to lots of Black folks who are really stuck in their own race-based trauma, but to any folk who are dealing with not only race-based trauma, but also any type of emotional trauma, from sexual trauma to also the traumas of just daily living. Our mastery of our breath can help us master our life in general.
So I thank you for that. And speaking of trauma, or there's a lot of trauma that people have endured with the death of family members, with the possibility of having to go back into these schools
Yeah.
and contract the disease, the virus. My question to you is, as somebody who worked with the breath, hearing about an illness that attacked the lungs.
Yes. The breath work that we have been encouraging people during COVID, uh, we have been on top of it, reading everything that we've been able to see about COVID, because it was very confusing to me as a virus. And I've been studying holistic health for a long time. So of course we went back to our regular toolboxes of what do you do when you have maybe a cold virus, or if you're having a lung issue relative to something similar to pneumonia. So those were our first references. Then we were blessed with one of the people who is one of the breath people that I work with. I'm part of an international organization called the International Breathwork Foundation, IBF. And we were part of World Breathing Day. And one of the participants in World Breathing Day was just kind of laying there most of the day, looking real pitiful. And people said, "Are you okay?" I say halfway through the day, we thought she was just relaxing. But she said, "No, I'm in England and I've contacted COVID." And we said, "Oh, wow. So can you give us some ideas as a person who studied breathing?" And what our sister told us was about the box breath. And the box breath, she had been practicing because it took a little less emphasis on the actual breathing mechanics. So we speak of breathing from a mechanical term. How does breathing work? The breathing mechanics and box breathing enables you the same hand on chest, hand on belly. A simple deep breath would be normally in and out, in and out. But because there's a lot of mucus that is attacking the respiratory spaces within the lungs, filling up those spaces, she suggested that we would need to have a better breath that is slower, that would give us optimum time for the lungs to build the oxygen into the tissues. So in COVID, we discovered that people are not dying only because they can't breathe. They are dying because the oxygen enrichment into the tissues of the lungs was so putrid with toxic waste, caked up, that the oxygen is not diffusing into the tissues, going into the organs, which change the way you look at things, right? So if you could slowly build the breath, and the box breath simply is inhale in, 1, 2, 3, 4, counting in your thoughts. Hold the breath in the belly, holding the breath in the belly for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, as you're releasing, and scrunching the lower portion right at the belly button, right at the diaphragm, holding the scrunch. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it simply goes inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Air is all the way out of the body. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale again to the count 2, 3, 4. Hands should be fully extended. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oxygen in the belly. Exhale. Gently open the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release. Scrunch in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale again. The belly should be coming out. Holding it out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, Sam. I can actually see this. Scrunch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pushing all that stale toxic air out. And now just release and relax. She said she did that all day long. She focused on her box breathing all day long. And she said because of that, she really saw that she was able to manage, and her oxygen began to build more and more and more into the cellular tissues, like an oxygen time release being released when the tissues needed that oxygen. So that was so helpful. The second technique would be that you want to relearn how to breathe from the lower portion of your body, what we call the basic diaphragmatic breath. And then last, I've seen all kinds of videos on YouTube where people are actually telling people to breathe up in the upper chest and hawk out. No, that is, we found that is very hard on the lungs, that is filled up and all congested. To force out was just really, really very difficult. And so to release out and take your hands instead and use gentle breaking of the constrictions in the upper chest, right? Middle chest, lower chest. Get people to hit you on the back of the upper chest with a flat
Feels good.
right. If you can't do it yourself, stand up against a wall and break it up yourself, okay? Bang up against the upper wall and break up the congestion. Just don't, be too dynamic. The goal would be also the hot waters, hot citrus products that would also help to break up congestion compared to cold drinking on the internal level. So you would follow up your breathing with warmth. You would put warmth on the chest. This is what we used to do with pneumonia. We would put what we say warm poultices of flannel cloth, break up the congestion, take that heat off, put it into cold water, put that on the lungs. That alternating of hot and cold helps to also break up those congested areas of inflammation. Of course, rest. Of course, de-stress, stay away from stressful, and because again, stress, holding the breath. So stay away from stress and trauma, relax as much as possible. And this one last concept that people don't understand is laugh. Make yourself laugh, smile, okay? Because laughter is a breath technique. Every time you laugh, ha 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 ha.
Laugh is good.
Ha 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 ha. Right there in the belly, we are inhaling and exhaling, bringing in oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide in a very dynamic way, increasing our immune system by allowing ourselves to laugh. So all of those breathing techniques are what we have been advocating. We've been talking about those techniques on a webcast that my company, Positive Energy Works, We offer a webcast every second and fourth Wednesday on Zoom now, so that we can interact with people and show them breath techniques and relaxation techniques as our service to help get people through COVID. And so that's always at 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. And we do a replay, and we also put it on Facebook. So you want to practice these breathing techniques, and you want to practice now more than ever before that basic breath technique, because that one technique will enable so many other of the breath techniques as a principle of building a concept. Having that one basic breath technique will start a lifelong relationship with changing the way you breathe and benefiting from better breathing.
I got one last question, Mama Ayo. Once again, now, I think this one's very important because you have, like you said, 50 years of experience, and the information that you're giving us, you can't really find in the mainstream, so-called the hospitals. To my knowledge, they aren't really talking about what you're talking about. They have people on breathing machines, things of that nature. So, what does the field look like from your vantage point of, and how can we go about increasing that so that we can have more community clinics, more practitioners, people really spreading this knowledge and getting our people right through breath?
I so thank you for asking that question. I did watch a lot of doctors on YouTube who did learn some of the breathing techniques as we have been moving into COVID. So I felt really good about that because there were some lung doctors on CNN who was telling people all wrong about how to breathe, period. And if you go on YouTube today, you're going to see all kinds of people telling people all kinds of wrong ways of breathing. But I'm very blessed. I do have some videos on YouTube, and I encourage people to come to my website, positiveenergyworks.com. One E that connects positive with energy, and an S on the M for works, because we have no real vested interest in steering people in the incorrect way of breathing, which I'm going to acknowledge now. I have over the years of learning these techniques, have been with other doctors and medical practitioners and in hospitals. And they too, before COVID, they have never really told the truth about how to breathe efficiently. So we have made it a real mission to ensure that if people don't learn anything else, they learn at least that basic breath technique. And we realized that, of course, I couldn't teach everybody, so we began to certify people in the relearn how to breathe modalities that I was able to develop. I was able to document my work in my books and in DVDs, of which, are affordable, so that people, the masses of people, could afford them. And as we began to see that there was all these people who've been studying in school for years and years and years with these higher degrees, and they're still telling people, take a deep breath, and they put a stethoscope right here, the uppermost portion of your lungs, and you do this, lift up your shoulders and do this every time you go to the doctor. We began to question, is this a conspiracy? How come these medical people who clearly know that is not an efficient breath? Yeah. And so all we could begin to do is to counter this false information and begin to hopefully train people in this concept. And so we work with small groups, large groups. We work with individuals. We created the We Learn How to Breathe modality just so that if people want to just train and become a leader in that modality, and we have now also opened that up as a training. But our other model of training uh, uh, has evolved into a certification of 3 days. And that certification is certifying optimum life breathologists. Optimal life breathology became the system by which I could impart at least 10 significant breath techniques and 4 breath practices. It's very hot in my studio, so I'm going to wipe off some of the perspiration. Um, I have some tissues around here somewhere. Okay, but we teach the practice of optimum life breathology, which is simply the science and the awareness of better breathing, the how to make breathing have practical application, how it really works, and then also how to help people to just be much more aware of the importance of how these particular techniques can shift our spirit, mind, and body. So we impart these particular specific techniques and encourage people to use them. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. That's all I needed. Okay, I'm an African, and I'm very proud of it. And when you breathe better, you do perspire. So I need people to understand that if you're not perspiring, it's a symptom that you're not getting the oxygen circulation with the that is part of oxygen, and it will have a major impact of you not perspiring. To not perspire for our young people who are always telling me, "Oh, Mama Ayo, you just sweat." I tell people I'm so thankful that I sweat, because if I didn't sweat, those toxic waste just keep you unhealthy and polluted. And so perspiring is a very important principle of oxygenation. So yes, we keep training, we keep teaching, we keep sharing. Our goal now is to expand, to take these practices so that those of us who are still in pain, like me, I sat and I watched my brother George Floyd being murdered on a video. It's something I will never forget. I cried. It was as if watching my own family member being killed in front of me. And because I have lost a son that re-traumatized, it brought back the triggered memory of holding my breath again. So I had to make myself breathe through that pain. Now we are realizing the importance of how many of us, white folks, black folks, Spanish folks, red folks, all folks, have had to deal with some type of trauma that relates to simply the color of our skin. Simply the color of our skin. Some of us have been traumatized because of the gender we came into this world in. Whatever gender that is that we claim, we've been traumatized. There are many of us who've been beat up on and dragged down the street simply because we look different. We may have a disability. Some of us are teased and played with because maybe our eyes are smaller, our head is bigger, or some of us even wear glasses and we're teased. Some of us are bigger. Some of us are smaller. All of these ways in which people see the divisions of life, what we call the divides, all of the
Yeah.
ways that we end up hurt by others just because the divides are played upon by our continued inhumanity, in our inhumane ways in which we hurt each other. The reality that a lot of the empathy that we used to have about people, the tolerance, the love that we used to have for others. We've seen people beat each other up on screen, the TV, the shows where people are arguing and fighting and screaming and pulling children from each other. All of these ways in which we are losing our empathy and humanity and tolerance towards each other. Our affirmation is that if we want to come back to wholeness as a people, we have got to use simple tools. And some of the most, for me, I have found in my work as an organizer, diversity trainer, counselor, the most simplest tool I have found to make the most significant difference is having the ability to use breathing as a tool of transformation. Breathing as a tool of transformation. Simply using breathing as a tool to shift. Using breathing as a tool to move old, stuck, stagnant pain, energy, frustration, rage, anger, fear, to move it so that we can be more empowered. And we've been coming from this perspective of creating a breath movement in order to be a more empowered human being, a more empowered group of people, not just any one race, but a whole new, evolved humanity. In order to create a breath movement, our goal now is to offer breathing training wherever we can, create systems in which people can share this knowledge amongst themselves and pass it so that we will see big shifts. Because I follow the principles of Malcolm. Malcolm spoke a great deal that if more of us were awoken, if we were awake, then we could do more to create a movement. So I want to see Black folks woke, all of the melanated folks. I want to see us awoke. And I want to see all the folks who don't even know that they come from melanated people. I want them awoke too. I want us all as a changed humanity to simply begin to act more like human beings towards each other. And I believe that this can happen simply by the way that we change our breathing. So our upcoming program, August the 1st, starts at Progress for Me. The concept is breath circles for racial diversity and gender healing. There will be speaking presentations, but the 12-step program will be introduced on August the 1st at the beginning of African, this is our African Heritage Month, for African Heritage Month, so that all of the Africans can come back to reality and wake up to their highest glory.
Shay. Mama Ayo, Handy Kendi, everybody.
Thank you so much for the
Nah,
yeah.
thank you. August 1st. You guys got to be there. It's on Zoom and Facebook Live between 4 and 6 p.m. And
Yeah.
please give us the website one more time.
August 1st from 4 to 6. You'll need to register. Definitely will need to register. And you can go to the website www.positiveenergyworks.com. One E that connects positive with energy. And there's an S on the end of works. If you get lost in finding that, please come to Ayo Handy Kendi, AYO. Just look up Ayo Handy Kendi on Google, AYOHANDY hyphen KENDI. I'm known as the Breath Sekou. I'm all over Google. As the founder of Black Love Day, you will see Black Love Day. Yay! Thank you. As a founder of Black Love Day and as a certified breathologist, I'm kind of listed in Google in a lot of different places. So yeah, look up Black Love Day in case you can't remember Ayo. But please look up breathing. You'll find me. Be diligent, please. We want you in these courses. We want you to take
All right, family.
leadership, definitely. We want you to share this concept. We want you to help the world to change.
Mama Ayo Handy Kendi, everybody, once again. My name's Sam P.K. Collins, a.k.a. Raj Pluquia Glebwo, and this was the All Eyes on DC show. We will keep having these Zoom conversations, and I know we will invite our esteemed breathologist and our esteemed elder back to the show at some point, much sooner than later. But I just want to thank you for giving your time today.
God bless you, Sam. Thank you so very, very much. And keep breathing because there's power in the breath. Breathe better to live better.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Peace and blessings.
Blessings and peace. Oh, Sam, I should say this. People call me all the time. You might be out there in an anxiety attack and you might need help to have someone breathe you through it. Don't mind my worldwide number, 202-667-2577. 202-667-2577. Peace and blessing. Can't
Peace
text me. Give me a call. I'll help you breathe through.
Oh, Ashe.
Okay.
Much love, y'all. Peace and blessings.
Love you.